Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
All right. Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Forum. Today is a treat for me. A young man who lived in the neighborhood, and he's done far better than any of us old guys have ever done. So,
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Zak Nugent. He's the CEO of Scalar Analytics. And he just bought a new building, 14,000 square feet for his company. Now, Zak, are you 40?
How old am I?
Yeah.
I'm 32.
Okay, 32.
Yeah.
Okay. Acts much older than 32.
Yeah.
That's 40 good. Apparently.
Yeah.
You don't
But,
look 40.
I don't look for. I hope not. Yeah.
So he's doing well. Went to the University of Utah. You played some ball up there too.
I played football at the U. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's done a lot of good things. He's going to explain all this TenX Networks and Linux and open source and all these things that he does. And he didn't do a PowerPoint or anything because he wants to have an interchange with you. That includes Kyle. Okay, you ready? Okay, so without any further introduction, welcome Zak Nugent.
So it probably helps to explain our firm and what we do, and then kind of the context of what I thought I'd speak about today, specifically related to entrepreneurship. So our firm, Scalar Analytics, we are a business valuation firm. So what we specifically do is we value companies for two purposes. We value them for tax and financial reporting, and then we do transaction advisory services. Okay, and the types of clients that we work with and the niche in which we work is working with venture-backed companies and private equity-backed companies, as well as venture funds and private equity funds. We also do some public company work as well. And so we have a really unique perspective on the market in that the majority of our clients are pretty high-growth companies. They're high-growth technology companies. They're also life science companies, and then we work with clean technology companies. And I've been the CEO of the firm for, call it approximately a year and a half. Prior to that, I've been with the firm for, call it 4.5 years. Prior to Scalar, I ran an consumer internet company that used user-generated content and then worked on lead gen in the housing market. And so that's my history prior to being with Scalar. I also sit on the board of advisors of a hardware technology company called TenX Networks. Best way to look at TenX is it's a competitor to Cisco. If you're familiar with Cisco, the difference is that it offers hardware technology, kind of router switches, et cetera, at a significantly discounted rate because we white label the product, and there's some cost advantages and savings associated with that. Much smaller company. I also sit on the board of directors of a software technology company called Capshare, and Capshare is a cap table management software. And if you're not familiar with a cap table, it's basically what the ownership of a company looks like. So it identifies the different classes of stock. So, hey, who owns what in regards to common stock, who owns what in regards to preferred stock. And as you grow, as a company matures, that capitalization table gets to become fairly complex. And so we've softwareized it, and there's an actual technology that we use, and it's called Capshare. So those are my primary responsibilities. Truthfully, I spend most of my time, I would say the majority of my time at Scalar, probably 99.9%. The other are kind of ancillary roles that I do on the side. And since I've been with Scalar, we've grown quite remarkably over the last, call it 4 years. We're on a pretty high growth trajectory. We grew over 50% last year, and this year we'll grow north of 50%. We'll hire approximately 10 additional people here in 2014. And so it's a fun, moving organization. We're headquartered in Sandy, but we have offices in Boston and in Argentina as well. Interestingly enough, the majority of our clients reside in the state of California. Utah makes up approximately 8% of our business, so it kind of gives you an idea geographically speaking. I started with the firm. This is basically my second startup that I've been with in regards to entrepreneurship. No, it's not technically true, maybe my third, but it's the one where I've actively participated in a management role on the second startup. And I've seen a lot of fun things being involved. So when Scalar started, I started in an office probably the size of, call it, it's an executive suite, and there were 2 of us. And we've grown into 18 people as of today, and as I said, we're gonna add 10 more people. So in the course of 2014, so it'll be close to call it 25 to 30 people by the end of the year that are working at Scalar, both here in our Boston office and as well as in Argentina. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about a couple of things that I've learned in kind of a number of years in pursuing different ventures, both from practically speaking with me being involved, and then secondly in regards to working with venture-backed companies. So I work with a lot of high-growth companies. And give you an idea, Scalar, we have approximately 450 clients. We do approximately 80 different types of valuation engagements in a month. So we see a lot of deal flow, we see a lot of information, and we work with a lot of fun entrepreneurs. And I would say there's kind of a couple of things that I see if you were to look at successful teams and successful entrepreneurs. The 2 things that I see, without a doubt, are focus and team. So if I were to be giving advice to anyone, I would say those are probably 2 elements to any successful venture, any successful entrepreneur is having, really myopic focus on what you're trying to accomplish, and then building a team of people that are better than you are. Okay. And there are a number of examples, and I'll try to kind of share some of my feelings on those. In regards to focus, entrepreneurs are notorious for having an immense, significant, they have so many ideas. They're always thinking about what's next, or let's go do something else. If anyone's ever worked with like a true, pure entrepreneur, they're so exciting and they have all these great ideas that sometimes it's hard to get them to sit still for one moment and focus on exactly what the task is at hand. So anyone that's ever worked with a kind of founding CEO or have any experience with it, or even read something in any type of book or novel or magazine article, you'll know that, okay? But for truly great, successful companies, you have to take all those great ideas and you have to hone them in and focus on exactly what you're trying to get accomplished. And in doing so, what ends up happening is everything starts, as you focus on whatever the objective is, everything starts to come together. Okay, you're not focused as much on X, Y, or Z. You're focused more on what they call it ABC, which is the task at hand, which hones in everybody's time, attention, concentration. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you think about Mark Zuckerberg, okay, if you think about Facebook, which there may be pros or cons for Facebook, but you can look at Mark Zuckerberg and say he has an immense amount of focus on which is the product of Facebook. He cares passionately about it. He's focused on it. You don't see Mark Zuckerberg worried about coming up with some new consumer product line in addition to what he's doing at Facebook. It is literally honing in on Facebook. And they have their mission statement in which they're going after, okay? They don't deviate from that. They focus specifically on what they're trying to get done. You could make a strong argument about other companies. You could look at an auto manufacturer. They focus on building really great cars. So you could look at somebody like Toyota, and Toyota says, if we're going to build a really great automobile, but we're not going to get involved in building homes, or we're not going to get involved in doing some ancillary technology. We're going to focus on building really great automobiles. And so from an entrepreneurship standpoint, it's really important that you don't get distracted. And there's a lot of noise today. So with the internet being ubiquitous and with technology so readily available, and with all of us having these, getting marketing messages coming from all different directions, it's very easy to get distracted. And so it's important that you, whatever direction you go in, that you focus on that. Now, there's a caveat to that, which is you have to learn and know when to pivot. Okay? Every business goes through a series of iterations, and as you iterate, you need to make sure that you don't get so myopic that you can't see the greater vision, and learn when to turn the ship, so to speak, and kind of pivot and redirect. Okay? But that's the caveat. That's kind of the afterthought. It's not a continuous pivoting. It's not a continuous, iteration. It's not. You're continually iterating, but you're not continually trying to change your complete focus of your business. In doing so, you diffuse the team, you diffuse yourself, and ultimately your ability to succeed diminishes quite significantly. So that would be my first piece of advice: focus. And I'll come back to focus and how it relates to you and your careers, and then specifically to how as you pursue ventures yourself. The second one I would focus on is team. Nobody can do it by themselves. Okay, the most important and the most successful businesses build exceptional teams. So as I look at it, a good analogy is we're in March Madness. Okay, it's let's think about Duke's basketball team. Okay, Duke is perennial, kind of a top 10 basketball team. Why are they a top 10? Because they recruit McDonald's All-Americans. Okay, they go after the very best basketball players. Okay, and then Coach K, he'll come in and he'll be able to take that team and he'll put them in the right positions to succeed. But the important point is he's recruiting the very best players, because by recruiting the very best players, it gives you the greatest likelihood of succeeding. The same can be said in business, okay? And this is something you can take to yourself and in your own career, which is people want to work with people that are exceptional in what they do, okay? And so when I look to hire somebody, I want to look to hire somebody that's exceptional. When I want to work with someone or partner with someone, I want to look with someone who's exceptional. I want to hire the McDonald's All-American. I want to work with the McDonald's All-American. I don't want to work with a guy that sits on the bench that maybe gets up every so often, and when he's required to get onto the court, he may go through it, kind of putting in minimal effort. You want people that are going to do their very best. You want to build a team around that. So where that becomes really important for any entrepreneur, first and foremost, is as an entrepreneur, you can have a great idea, but a great idea is only as good as the people around you. And so you need to make sure that whomever you end up hiring, from advisors to, if you're a technology company, if you're not the founding CTO, you better make sure you have a great CTO. If you're doing some type of services company or life science company, you need to make sure that the people you have around you are the very best in their field. Okay? And to do that becomes difficult. It's almost like go back to recruiting. Okay, if you look at basketball, or you could look at it in the context of football or any other athletic endeavor, there's a constant recruiting between different teams. Hey, why am I going to go to this team versus this other team? And obviously coaches and personnel are going to be selling them on why. Okay, a good example right now is you look at Silicon Valley and you look at developer talent. So if you're a software developer in Silicon Valley, there's a talent war going on. So among all the big tech companies and then all the other, I would consider kind of venture-backed, kind of early stage companies, there is an immense amount of competition related to getting people hired. And you have to offer something in regards to a value proposition. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm sitting in that CEO role, I need to make sure that I'm providing an opportunity for my team to be able to move in a direction that my incentives for the company align with their career incentives. Okay, so it's not an easy thing to do to hire a really great team. If you look at unemployment, and people obviously use unemployment as a bearing or indication on how the economy is doing. I think you need to differentiate that. I think you have to look at it and say, hey, there's the hourly employee, which unfortunately there are a lot of people that don't have jobs there. And then you look at people that are better educated. Honestly, it's extremely hard to find really great people, because today offers are coming so quickly, and in addition to that, people are being paid more. So it becomes incredibly important that you're offering something more than just compensation to people while you're building a team. So culture becomes a big part of that. In addition to culture, I would say work-life balance. Adding something to helping their career aspirations. If somebody wants to go do and pursue something, I'll give you an example. At our firm, I have a colleague who's very interested in social entrepreneurship, and he's very interested in working in Africa. Okay, he's had other ventures in Africa before, and specifically Ghana. That's kind of where he obviously feels very passionate about. So we allowed him to go to Ghana. And it wasn't anything other than, hey, this is something I want to pursue on the side. Are you guys comfortable with that? We said, sure. So he went to Ghana for 3 weeks, and he's pursuing a snail farm because he's very much interested in it. But he also works really hard for our firm. But what it allows us to do is, while he's here in Salt Lake and he's working for us, he works approximately 60 hours a week, sometimes a little bit more, so he works a lot of hours. But knowing that he has that flexibility to go to Ghana when he wants to allows, we build a very, what I would consider it's a cohesive relationship to where he wants to work for our firm and he wants to put in those long hours because he doesn't feel like he gets hit with resistance when he says, hey, I want to fly over to Ghana and work on this, okay? So that would be my second thing is, you want to build a great team. You have to, and as a entrepreneur, you want to make sure that as you build a great team, you're providing them with incentives that allow them to feel like they can pursue their own dreams as well. I guess in regards to that as well, I think you need to set clear expectations as an entrepreneur is when you're hiring people. And I am a big believer that time for money is probably the worst way to hire people. I'm a big believer it's results for money. For example, at our firm, we don't track your hours. I don't care when you come in the office. I don't care when you leave. I don't track your vacation days. You can take as many as you want. What I care about and what's the most critically important thing is if you have a project on your desk and there's a timeline to hit, that you hit that timeline and you do it right. And other than that, I don't care. So in our firm, when we hire people, we make sure that people are results oriented. They're not time oriented. So if you want a job and I call it in the 21st century in 2014, you need to be results oriented. And as you hire people, you need to be results oriented. You also, even in the event you have a salary position, which all of our positions, almost all of our positions, there are a couple of hourly positions for some specific reasons, but most all of our positions are salary, and then they have some type of incentive associated with them. So we give people bonuses in addition to their salaries, and that bonus is all associated with their results, okay, or the results of the firm. So there's some type of tied monetary compensation related to their results. And what we find is that we have very little turnover in our firm. In fact, we've had so little turnover, which is a positive, that we build these really enduring, strong relationships, and they help champion the firm outside of kind of the day-to-day. A lot of what we found in hiring people, we actually prefer to hire in the network, meaning than to posting a job. And I think as an entrepreneur, you'll probably find this as well, which is when I post a job, I really don't know anything about that person. It's kind of like a cold call. If somebody cold calls someone, what do you really know about them? Versus if you get referred into, rather. Thing I would say as well. So as an entrepreneur and as a student right now, it's critically important that you're networking, that you're constantly talking to new people, that you're getting out there in the workforce, you're taking people to lunch, breakfast, that you're looking at different opportunities that you're interested in, because people hire within the network. There are a lot of times we won't even post a job. And there are times when people come to us and we find people that are exceptional. For example, we're going to be, I have a call later this week with someone from New York City that reached out to me that said, hey, I'm interested in working with you. I live in New York, but I could probably make it work. We've had some conversations. If we end up pulling the trigger and we end up hiring, we'll actually open a New York office, which we don't already have, to bring him on board. And I wasn't actively soliciting that person. He just turns out to be a pretty good person that was interested in our firm, and he reached out to me. But part of it was there was some networking that took place, and there were common connections. Okay. We hired our managing director that works in Boston. I was connected to her via client. Okay, so those connections and that network are critically important to anyone's career as they move forward. Don't live in a silo at all. It's a worse place to be. You want advocates, and even if they're not in your industry specifically, you never know. I'm a big believer in karma, especially business karma, which is this. The more you give, the more you get. And it's not necessary, and you don't do it with that explicit reasoning. You do it with the idea of saying, hey, I want to help you. And if it's genuine and pure, it usually comes back to pay huge dividends. Okay? And that could be little things. Making a small introduction, helping somebody out on something. And sometimes it really doesn't benefit you, nor will it ever benefit you. But I'm saying it's the law of karma. I'm just a big believer in it. So what goes around comes around. One last comment, and then I just want to do Q&A, which is related to your careers. Okay, if I was back in school right now, and I was kind of sorting through what my next steps were, and I was investigating entrepreneurship and what I want to do next, I would write a list of everything I'm interested in. I would literally go down and I'd write a list of everything I'm interested in. So if I'm interested I'm just going to use an example. If I'm interested in software development, if I'm interested in being a software developer, Okay, I would list down, okay, I'm interested in being a software developer, and I'm interested in working with these really cool tech companies. Okay, so I'm interested in working at Google, I'm interested in Facebook, I'm interested in working at any number of software technology companies. Okay, I'd write those all down. If I'm interested in working in banking, I'd write down all the banks that I want to work at. If I'm interested in working in the medical field, I work down every company that I know of in the medical field. If you don't know a company, but you're interested in some type of field or industry, write that down. For example, I'm interested in medical device. I don't know any medical device companies. You write it down. So you get this big comprehensive list, and here's what you go do. And the most critical thing that people don't tell you to do, and so I'm telling you right now because nobody told me this when I was in college, you go intern at those places or you go shadow at those places and you do it for free. Okay? And here's how you do it. You write down the name and you say, let's use it for example. Okay, so local bank, Goldman Sachs. Okay, well, they're based out of New York, but there's a big presence here locally. And you say, locally, I want to work at the Goldman Sachs office. Okay, great. It's a great bank. You want to work at Goldman Sachs. Okay, the likelihood of you getting an internship at New York, at Goldman, New York, the truth of it is almost zero, none, zilch, nada. They don't recruit out of, for their New York office, they probably recruit BYU's undergraduate finance program. That's about the only place. So if you're not coming out of there, you're probably not getting an internship in their New York office. Okay, but you get exposure to it. So what you could say is, hey, I'm interested in interning there. You write down Goldman, and then you write down anybody that you know at Goldman Sachs, anybody's name. If you don't know anybody, get on LinkedIn. And then see who you're connected with. It's a second connection or third connection. Use it to your, this is the way you use LinkedIn. Use it to your advantage. Write down their names, and then reach out to them and say, hey, I'm very much interested in working at Goldman Sachs. I know it's their operations office in Salt Lake City, and I'm interested in pursuing a career in that field. Would you mind if I took you to breakfast or lunch and picked your brain? You go, take them to breakfast or lunch. It doesn't cost you much of anything. Cost you a sandwich. $5, take them to Subway. And you go pick their brain. And then you say, hey, it would be really great if I could shadow you for a day. Would you mind? You say, great, yeah, come by and shadow me. So you go to Goldman, if they allow you to do this, and you sit down and you just watch them work for a day. That's all you do. And you go back, after you've done that, you go back and you say, yes, I like that job, or no, I don't like that job. And you can very simply cross it off your list. Or you circle it, and you go through your list, and very slowly but surely, you will whittle out a bunch of jobs that you may think you're interested in that you really aren't. Okay? As that relates to entrepreneurship, it also helps you hone in on what you're really passionate about. A lot of people talk about passions, like, hey, you got to pursue your passions. I'll be honest with you, when I started at Scalar, I didn't think this would be my end-all be-all. Okay? I really didn't. But I've actually learned to enjoy what I do, and I'm really passionate about it. Okay? And so sometimes it can be learned, but you have to be interested in the industry. When I joined Scalar, it was a startup, and one of the things, I was very much interested in this business. In fact, I sought it out. Okay? It wasn't something that came to me. It wasn't a job posting. I actually networked into the opportunity. I had a good friend that made the introduction to somebody that was running the firm at the time, and that's how I got it in. Okay? But I was interested in this industry, and that's how I was able to get the job. So very similar. Write down what you're interested in. Go after those people. And if you can get it, and by the way, the greatest thing about this, people love to talk about themselves. Look, I keep on talking about myself here. People love to do it. Okay? So say, I just want to take you to breakfast or lunch, and I want you to talk about yourself. What do you like about your job? What do you hate about your job? Can I come sit and just watch you work? It costs you an afternoon. It costs you a morning. That's all. But it gives you incredible insight to something that you do not have, that you cannot get any other place. So that's my piece of advice as you kind of look for whatever your passion is as you look for a new job. And if you whittle that list down to like 2 or 3 or 4 places, then you ask for the internship over a summer internship. Then you ask for an internship of some shape or form. If you're working, then you try to get something to where maybe you pick up like 2 times a week. You do something to where you can get in there. Because if it hones in on your core list of what you're interested in, then you want to go out and you want to get an internship. And while you're in there, you do it for free. I'm telling you right now, it's all about results. And you push yourself, and people look at that and they say, like that hire. That's a good person. We're going to make him a job offer. We did that. Had a person reach out to us, non-paid internship. We just made him an offer. Okay? We just made him. He's fantastic. We like him, and he earned his spot. There's another gentleman at my firm. He did the same thing. He did it 3 years ago. Came to us. He just asked for a job. We didn't have a job. We offered him a non-paid internship. We said, hey, you're looking to go do something. We'll give you this if you're interested in it. You could prove yourself. And this year he'll probably make $120,000 to $150,000. Okay, and he came in, he didn't make anything at the beginning, and he's 26, so it gives you an idea of how old he is. Okay, but he's incredibly sharp, he's incredibly talented, he works really, really hard. Okay, and he proved himself, and I wouldn't have known that otherwise. Yeah.
What was your passion?
What was my passion? Mm-hmm. I love building businesses, and I love working with exceptional people. I'm fortunate in my job is both with the people that I work with. I actually work with people that are much smarter than I am and much better than I am, so it's fun. And then our clients are exceptional. Literally work with some of the greatest companies in the world, both from an early stage and then from a later stage. And I just get to work with great people. So that's what I love doing. Yeah.
Based on the services that you guys provide, who would be your competition that you guys are fighting for clientele? Yeah,
it's a good question. So locally, there's a firm that kind of technically would, if you consider, spun off from us. That's a competitor. It's called Greener Ventures. We also compete with a group called Lone Peak. Most of our competition's outside the state, though. We do compete locally, but a lot of it's. So Duff and Phelps as a group, or Houlihan Lokey would be two that you'd want to hear.
You say it was a spinoff. Do you guys sign like non-compete with?
Yeah, so non-compete's an interesting question. It's a great question. So non-competes, how valid is a non-compete? Well, if you reside in the state of California, it means nothing. So if you reside in the state of Utah, the way that non-competes work, you really have to pay more attention to the non-solicitation portion of it. Meaning, it's really hard to enforce a non-compete, and it's very expensive. So what you try to do is you try to adhere people to a non-solicitation portion of the agreement, which you can enforce. It's hard to say to somebody that says, hey, you can't go work doing that. And the state of Utah doesn't like that. They don't like to say, you can't work. And so you say, well, Judge, it's the only thing, that's what I know, that's my business. So it's really hard to enforce a non-compete. But yes, we do have some, there are some people who have non-competes. It kind of just depends. Yeah.
What's your educational background?
Yeah, so I graduated in economics from U. That's where I went to school.
So you have like a bachelor's?
I have a bachelor's in science in economics. Yep.
I'm actually an economics major as well.
Okay.
Just curious, how much do you use the economics that you learned from the U? And I guess if you went back, would you do it over again, economics?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Probably yes and no. So the University of Utah is an interesting economic program in that it's pretty qualitative. It's not a quantitative program. So I don't know if I would advise that. If I would, econ's it's a fun program. I would say, yeah, I may do it as a double major. If I were to do it over, I'd probably get a harder skill set in finance or accounting. Just because there's more math and there's more, the skill set's more applicable to real life in an accounting or in finance rather than just econ.
I'm actually going to be going to BYU, so.
Okay. BYU's got a great econ program. So if you're going to, but even then, BYU's, I'll tell you right now, BYU's finance undergraduate program is significantly better than anywhere else in the state. I'm a U guy, so I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. If you look at the people we recruit, somebody coming out of BYU's undergraduate finance program versus someone coming out of the U's, literally, they're probably a year or two ahead of the University of Utah graduate. Not always. There are people that push themselves, that really kind of take it upon themselves to learn more and do above and beyond what's required of them. But if you look at the candidates coming out, BYU has better candidates coming out of school. It's the curriculum is more rigorous. It's better preparing people. The econ program is more quantitative at BYU as well. So if we were recruiting somebody, if they had an undergraduate degree in econ from BYU, we would look at them. They would have. We have two tests. We actually have a finance test that we administer, and then we have a case study that we do as well. So you have to pass both of those in our interviewing process to be able to be offered a job. So it does take. You have to have some background and understanding of like an income statement and how it works and things of that nature.
What about like business administration at the U?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Like how good it is, or is that what you're asking?
Like the business administration program, like do you know anything about the program at the U?
Yeah, I don't know specifics about it. The U's a good school. I mean, really, the advice I would give anybody is go to a university. I mean, obviously you're at college now, but if you're pursuing, you go into a new university, like the U or the Y. I would work really hard in your studies. Make sure that you're graduating at the top of your class, you know, and even if you graduate from the U or the Y. But pursue, going back to the other things I had talked about, I think those are going to be more critical for your career than just getting a degree. Because a lot of people have degrees. You've got to know what you want, and to know what you want, you have to have had an opportunity to get exposure to different things. So a business administrative degree from the U is great. If somebody had a business administrative degree and came and talked to me and they were interested in what we did, I'd absolutely talk to them. Okay. So it's a good degree. It's more about, once again, what do you want, and you know, are you results oriented, and that's what I care about.
Could you briefly kind of explain some of the key points that you guys look at?
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, the income, of course, but there's a lot more aspects, I assume.
Yeah. So how we value companies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it all depends on the type of company we're valuing, but there are three, basically valuations centered around three different valuation methodologies, and they're ubiquitous. They're used in real estate. They're used in business valuation. You look at an income approach, a market approach, and a cost approach. Okay, and the income approach, a good way to look at that is you say, hey, what are the future cash flows of this business? And then you discount them back to present value using an appropriate discount rate. Okay, that's the first way of valuing a company, so the income approach. It's also known as the discounted cash flow. The next way you value a company is a market approach. You basically, like real estate, you know, you're going to look at what other houses are being bought and sold for in the same neighborhood. Same with a business. Hey, what are other companies like this being bought and sold for? You look at public comparables, because there's actually public equities that are exchanging hands on a regular basis. So that obviously creates a market. And then you look at M&A transactions. So you look at public comps and M&A comps. But the metrics that we measure specifically are typically related to revenue and EBITDA, and we're looking at trailing 12 months, and we look at next 12 months. Okay, so that's another way to look at it. You can also look at valuing companies based off their recent securities transactions. So if a company has actually gone out and sold a minority position in their company to another third party, that by definition is fair market value, giving it an implied valuation. So it's another way to value a company. And then another way is a cost approach, is basically saying book value, you know, how you calculate book value, assets minus liabilities. Okay, so there's book value. There's invested capital is another way to look at that. It was how much capital have we actually put into this asset to get it to where it is today. Okay, so those are ways that we value a company. That's from a kind of, call it a high level tops down enterprise value. And then we do some more complex valuation in regards to the equity allocation of that, but that's for another day. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
About buying out a minority partner in the company. And he doesn't have the strength to control the company, but it does have value.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would you look at that valuation for a minority partner?
Yeah, so when we're valuing the equity position of a minority partner, we typically apply what's called a discount for lack of marketability. So a way we look at that is we'd say, hey, let's use just a corporation because it's easy for the analogy. Let's say that we're looking at common stock. Let's just say there's one security so we don't complicate it. There's one security, let's just say it's 100% common stock, and there's a minority position holder. He owns 5% of the company, and he wants to sell his 5%. What's his 5% worth? Okay. Well, part of that is truthfully, what anyone's willing to pay for it, I guess, is a little bit part of that. But the way we would calculate it from a financial standpoint is we'd say, hey, let's say the common stock's worth $1. He's a minority shareholder, so we add a discount for lack of marketability. And that discount rate depends on some math, depends on kind of a number of different inputs. Depending on kind of stage and size of the company, and kind of the industry in which they're in, but we would apply a discount to it.
Did Zach tell you that control is important?
Yeah, so absolutely, but I mean, I would be a very strong advocate that control is incredibly important. It all depends. I mean, so think about it in this context. If I'm going to start a company, ideally you want to run the company and you want to keep it all yourself. I mean, we're self-motivated that way. It's capitalist society. We want to own the whole thing ourselves. What ends up happening, though, it's tough, is you, over time, to grow a company, most of our clients, for example, they raise capital. And they raise capital from sophisticated investors, so venture capitalists or private equity. Now, whenever you raise money from somebody, there's always strings attached. Okay? You have to understand that. Money doesn't come for free. And so typically there will be a way not always the case, most of the time when they give you money, they will want to set up an independent board of directors because they want to protect their investment that they just put into your company. So yes, it's important to control, but whenever you start taking money from other people, understand that you do have some control, but you may not have total control anymore. And are you willing to give that up? Well, I'd be willing to give up for a certain dollar amount if that dollar amount can help build the pie.
If the yield you get on your investment is greater than the cost of that, then you'd give it up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if it's an accretive transaction, absolutely. Sure.
Now, typically, and you talked about discounted present value. Does everyone understand discounted present value? Who understands it? Okay.
So I'll speak at a very high level, and not to get into, this isn't a finance or accounting class, so I'll keep it pretty basic. You discount it because the likelihood is there is a risk rate associated with you actually getting that capital. Okay, so you're assigning a discount to the total sum value of that. Okay, so for example, discount rates change based on stage and size of company as well. If I'm GM, I can give you a pretty accurate forecast of what our financials are going to look like over the next 5 years. Why? Because I've got a long history, I've got a lot of market data, I can pretty much accurately forecast where I am, plus or minus some number of cars. If I'm Instagram, I can't. I have really no operating history, I have no real monetization structure or ability to monetize my asset. I can't really give you that. And if I do, how speculative is it? See the difference? So if you're going to give me if you're going to project out cash flows for Instagram versus GM, there's going to be a different discount rate associated with both of those entities, based off of obviously stage and size, risk factors, history, etc. And there's different inputs that go into it, but that would be for an accounting/finance class more than. So the data that we use for the private company transactions, actually a comment came up just recently with a new client. That data is very obscure, it's hard to find. We subscribe to a database and pay a lot of money to subscribe to it to get us as much possible data as we can. The reality of it is, though, if I'm a private company, you're a private company, and we transact, do we want to disclose what the numbers are? No, probably not. It doesn't even matter how big of a company. It could be $1 billion company or smaller. Most people don't like to disclose it. So it's difficult to find that information. Where it becomes more readily available if it's a big public company and it's a big enough transaction to where it really affects their balance sheet. If they deploy a lot of cash or if they issue stock, you'll get a lot more data about that because they have to justify the purchase price in which they're paying.
And that data would vary depending on the purpose. If you were looking at a hostile takeover, it would be more difficult to find than if you're talking about a merger of people who are trying to merge.
Yeah, so it's a great point. We're not an investment bank, so we don't really get involved a ton in hostile takeovers.
But you deal in this kind of area a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, so let's say, for example, this happens regularly. So I actually was on the phone with somebody yesterday who said, hey, I'm very much interested in buying this company. They think it's worth X. We think it's probably worth Y, or better put, they think it's worth X. We think it's worth 1/2 X. Okay? How do we bridge that gap? Because that's one of the things that we do. So we come in and we do what's called we do a fairness opinion, and we say the value of the company is within a range of value. So where fair value is within this range. And so let's say, for example, they're arguing that the company is worth, call it $1 million, it's easy math, $1 million. We may come in and say, well, the range of fair value, based on our valuation methodologies, is worth anywhere between $500,000 and $750,000. Obviously, $1 million would be outside of that range. And then you could justify that based off the data that we provide. And the data that we provide is very quantitatively based data. Okay, and what we use as inputs basically is going to be the financial metrics of the company. You can't really manipulate that stuff. So in that aspect, it's good. And what becomes more difficult is what do you do for an early stage technology company that has no revenue, no EBITDA, they don't have anything, it's got a great idea. How do you?
It's a new idea.
It's a great idea.
Nobody, yeah,
How do you value that company? Now that one,
Yeah.
that becomes fun.
that becomes a lot tougher.
So we have a number of clients like that. So as I said, the majority of our clients reside in the state of California. It's not uncommon that I'll get a call and say, Zach, I just raised $4 million. The pre-money was 10, the post-money is 14 million. Okay, we raised preferred stock. What do you have? I have nothing. I have no business model. I have an idea. And I wrote it on a napkin, and over lunch, I got the check. There's no lie this actually happens. Why does it happen? That's the good question. One, because that guy that just got that check, he's done it before. So he built a company up, sold it off, made their investors a lot of money. So it makes sense. They say, oh, he's got another great idea. We want to be the first ones to invest in it. Okay? So
Investors made money and they're willing to ride with him again.
exactly. They bet on the jockey, they don't bet on the horse. So those types of companies, when we value those companies, we look at that. Whenever you buy or sell stock in a company, if you are a third party, you are by definition creating fair market value for that security that you're purchasing. And so they're implicitly putting a value on that company when that transaction took place. So we do something, and not to get into all the granular details, but we do what's called kind of an adjusted post-money valuation, utilizing a methodology called the Black-Scholes, or the option pricing method. And so that's how we value the company. And I'd probably get into a lot more details about that. But if you're ever interested, it's the Black-Scholes.
How you just explain that, is that kind of the same way as if, we'll say, like a company holds a patent, you don't really care about the company, you just want that patent? Would you use that same
it's a great
structure?
So we do intangible asset valuations, patents would be included, but it goes back to those same three methodologies. Okay, so patents is a great question. I get calls from patent attorneys saying, I got this really great patent and I want to value it. What's it worth? So great. What is the patent? Tell me the patent. Great. I got to derive some revenue based off of it. So you have to say, hey, what is the future cash flows of that patent? There's got to be some monetary value associated with the patent. Additionally, you have to look at it and say, if that doesn't exist, okay, what can we use? Can we use that patent for something? And as a bolt-on onto another patent that helps augment the revenue there, and we can associate some type of metric, some type of future cash flow associated with that. So as a standalone, it may not be worth anything, but if you bolt it onto another patent, it's worth significant. It makes that other patent worth significantly more, makes them both worth more. We can sometimes quantitatively kind of describe that. The other thing is you can look at what other patents that are like that, which is hard to say which patents are like that, but you can say what are those being bought and sold for in the marketplace. So you could look at that as well. You could also, the other way to value a patent is basically saying, what's the cost methodology? And the way you look at that is, how much money did you invest in that patent to get it to where it is today? A lot of times what you'll find out on tax forms and when people are transferring assets, that's what they do a lot on patents, if they have really nothing more than that we have this really cool, I have this really cool patent for this really cool technology that can't be monetized and nobody really wants to buy it. What's it worth? It's like it's worth what you paid for it. So that's kind of what you can describe on patents. Patents are a little bit significantly more tricky to value than a company, for example.
What I would ask you, on behalf of the class, you talked about passion, you talked about knowledge, and you talked about energy to complete and meet your goal. How would you prioritize those three things and order them in your? Yeah.
So, I think the most important thing, if I were to look at it as you don't know if I'm sitting back in school, I don't know all my passions are. I have interests, but I don't know. So I think the most important thing, if I were doing it, is I would literally write down all my interests. By writing down my interests and going exploring those interests, I tend to find passions. And that's kind of what I do first if I was sitting in your shoes. It also leads to entrepreneurship. If I'm really passionate about, So for example, I'm really passionate about, men's suits, for example, which I love men's suits. That's kind of my thing. But if I'm really passionate about it, I may want to pursue and start being interested in starting a clothing line, okay? If that's where your passion lies and that's where you want to go, then you really don't know that until you go down that path and down that journey. And then once you kind of know it, then you focus on it, you go after it. That's how I would describe what's...
And then you focus your knowledge and your efforts in that area that meet your passion.
Yeah. But knowledge is, be a continuous learner. Always reading, always studying, talking to people that are smarter than you. It doesn't stop, I'm telling you. You'll find that it gets more and more competitive, and knowing more and more is critically important to what you're doing. And if you don't know it, make sure you have people on your team that do.
The closer to the top you get, the more competitive it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you enjoy it? Did you learn? Can we give him a hand?
Thank you.